what it means to be transgender. It's kind of a unique journey for each of us in the transgender community, and the objective isn't always, to, live a life kind of like, a woman trapped in a man's body. That our journey is to completely go like super feminine and super girly and appear like a totally genetic female. We all fall somewhere in between, and I think people need to understand that it's a journey of self, and we all have to find our most kind of comfortable, authentic form of self. My name is Sabrine Johnston. I am 45 years old. I am transgender. I've been a hairdresser for 25 years. I've always felt an incongruence with my sense of self, and for me, my journey has been very much about my body. I always felt that, things didn't match between the biology of my physical self and who I felt mentally. It wasn't really something that I kind of struggled with, like, should I, shouldn't I? It was just a matter of me for logistics and the fear of kind of turning my life on, upside down, and the turmoil that it would have created. I love who I am. I can honestly say that. I'm 45 years old and almost 46. Oh. And I'm really, truly the happiest I've ever been. And I kind of sometimes can't believe that I'm here. Sometimes when I look at my reflection in the mirror, I feel like, wow, I've arrived. It's been an arduous journey, and it's been an incredibly beautiful journey. And it is not the totality of who I am. It doesn't define who I am, but it's definitely shaped very strongly who I am. And if I had the choice to, as cliche as it sounds, to have been born kind of a genetic female, I don't think I would choose that option. My journey happened probably a little bit later in life. By today's standards, being 2014, a lot of people are transitioning much earlier on. But, when I was in my 20s, we didn't even, early 20s, we didn't even have like the internet yet. So the resources, for outreach and things like that, it was a much more daunting process. The only avenue that I had was to seek out a mental health practitioner and, try and get some feelers out that way to begin my process, counseling or whatever. I was married when I was in my early 20s. It was very short-lived. And then when I moved back to Florida, I lived as a gay male for close to 20 years. And was kind of very content with that for some time. Always aware of the incongruence and strife that I was experiencing inside with issues of my body. And, it was about 5 years before I really truly decided that I was going to transition, that I can only describe it as this construct started to kind of like break down. And it was a very weird time. It's going to sound almost schizophrenic, but it wasn't. It was this fracturing of self that happens, where I started to feel the essence of me, who I truly was as a person, and knew in my heart who I was as a person, start to recede. And this kind of facade had, almost protective mechanism had not really taken over, but was the more dominant, and it was very scary looking in the mirror and not really almost recognizing who you are, because, denial is such a very powerful, complex emotion. And for years I said to myself, you couldn't transition, oh my God, what would people say? That was probably the biggest thing in my mind. And then there was this little voice that literally said to me, like, but what if you did? And for me, it was kind of like this literally divine moment, a spiritual moment, that it was almost like in my mind and my heart, I saw like this light, you know, like of like what my life could be like. And I had these images and these flashes of what my life could be. And it gave me so much hope and so much promise and a kind of release, if you will, and a sweet release of what if you did allow yourself to be your truly most authentic sense of self? And it was kind of like at that time that I slowly started to take the steps to transition. My work was my most daunting environment. It scared the crap out of me. I didn't fear judgment from my coworkers. It was the barrage of questions and from the clients and everything like that. We work in a salon of 12 hairdressers, 25 employees. I have a huge clientele. So that was very daunting, you know, to field all of those questions. I lost 30% of my clientele when I transitioned. Some people that literally did not come back. And I remember I had one client who I did the kids' hair ever since they were in elementary school, and did their first haircuts. And I remember the one daughter was in her first year of high school. And when I announced I was transitioning, and the mother said to me, "But what am I going to tell my daughters when they come in and see you?" And I said, "Tell them I'm transitioning to become my best form of myself and be truly happy." I never saw her again. There were a couple comments that stick in my mind that were probably some of the most abrasive. I had one of the clients who came in twice a week for a blow dry. She was not my client. And when she was just a few seats over, looked at me, made eye contact, and held the eye contact when she said this. She said, "I don't know what's going on with this place. It's really going downhill." When I was met with these kind of derogatory comments, I really tried to meet it with grace, and I would just kind of look at her and kind of smile pleasantly and just let it kind of roll off like water off a duck's back. At times it was definitely way more difficult than other times, and sometimes it would get to me and I would have to politely excuse myself from my client and go into the restroom and have a good cry and um, and touch up my makeup and make my way back out there and continue to do a haircut or whatever service I was doing. So that was difficult to, you know, in your workplace, you know, really try and maintain your composure while still navigating all of these things emotionally and mentally. And then there were also these really beautiful moments that I had. You know, that's one thing that I really try and like emphasize and focus on a little bit more is the beautiful moments. I'll never forget in the salon. This was actually just a few years ago. We had a little girl was in, and she was only like 6, and her mom was getting her hair cut with a coworker, and I was cutting a stylist's hair, and all of a sudden this little girl is, you know, standing at my station while I'm doing a haircut, and she, in her little voice, she's like, "Excuse me, excuse me." And I looked down, and there she is, like the Norman Rockwell, you know, picture. She's got little pigtails coming outside of her head. And I said, "What can I do for you, honey?" And she just looked at me. She goes, "I just wanted to tell you you're beautiful." And I was like stunned and so touched and thanked her profusely. And my client said to me, you know, "Oh my God, that was amazing. Did that just make your day?" And I'm like, that made my lifetime.
How would you describe Scott, and then how would you describe Sabrine?
This is the part that it's so interesting when you're inside the head of a transgender individual. The male piece of me, the piece of me that was Scott, you know, feels in ways like a different entity. It makes me kind of emotional, and it kind of catches me off guard because I've often thought of him as kind of like this brave soldier that got me through that difficult time, and kind of protected me, and helped me kind of arrive to where I am today. So in a kind of funny way, I have an incredible admiration for him, and an incredible gratitude toward that piece of me that helped kind of carry me all those years. I view that sense of myself, if I refer to Scott, as a very strong individual. At times a very sad individual. But I honor that part of myself and that process that he went through. That's the part where it sounds almost like schizophrenic, where I start using pronoun referring to myself. But it is. And then Sabrine is so different because it's kind of like what I mentioned. There's a lightness to me. There's a lightness in my mind and in my heart. This liberation that I feel. This joy to live in this existence that I have now, and I feel like Sabrine is way more evolved, almost like in kind of a spiritual sense. My sense of self, my intellect, my heart, just so leaps and bounds past where I was when I was Scott. So it's just an incredibly different existence.